explain with reference to context Lucky's speech in Waiting for Godot. Samuel Beckett's play Waiting for Godot discusses the transition from modernism to postmodernism. Beckett's characters are constantly portrayed as a product of external influences and not considered as unified rational beings. Backett is seen to be greatly influenced by the emergence of structuralism, which places great emphasis on the importance of language. Hence, Waiting for Godot takes use of language and speech in order to create confused realities. Beckett's work is defined by the consciousness that words are incapable of expressing the inner self and by the simultaneous acceptance of the fact that language is intrinsic to the human situation and thus not a removable element. Backett regards language as constitutive of the identity of the self. The dialectical relationship between the object to be expressed like theme and the mode of expression such as form, style are significant in Beckett's play. Lucky's speech is probably the most spectacular part of Waiting for Godot. The speech, which consumes 3 pages of play, takes the form of a long, seemingly incoherent speech. Many critics, including Martin Esslin, consider Lucky's thinking act as wild, schizophrenic word salad. Lucky's speech gives the impression of total dissolution of language and thought. Lucky's soliloquy cannot be identified as a dialogue nor a monologue, but in fact voiced out thoughts. Lucky's repetitious and pseudo-scientific speech is used against the mediated language representative of conventional literary, religious and scientific discourses. Lucky's speech can't be reduced to mere gibberish or anti-intellectual. However, it may situate the intellect as the domain responsible for the mind's appropriation of feelings and sensations. A deeper look at the speech makes it intelligible. It brings about a sense that words have been put together haphazardly to produce a particular structure and meaning to be perceived from this structure. In this way, Lucky's speech is a microcosm of the play itself as it produces meaning from its formlessness and lack of content. Backett himself remarked on this speech, "The threads and themes of the play are being gathered together." He further explains that the theme of this monologue, as that of the play, is to shrink on an impossible earth under an indifferent heaven. Lucky's speech is initiated when Vladimir requests Pozzo to make Lucky speak. Pozzo asserts that Lucky needs his hat to do so. After Lucky has his hat placed on his head, Pozzo orders him to think big, mocking the traditional phrase, "think big." To provide some sort of structure of Lucky's speech, it can be roughly divided into 3 sections. The first section starts with a hypothetical statement about the existence of a personal God outside time, living in divine apatheia, divine aphasia, and divine athambia. In fact, the very existence of God is in doubt. He is referred to as Quaqua with white beard. The speaker assumes a God who is pictured as the benevolent grandfather with white beard about whom the children learn in Sunday school and who will be with them the rest of their lives, even if they rebel against him, opposite of a caring father. This personal God does not communicate or can be felt and eventually condemns his creations for unknown reasons. In this respect, even if a God exists, he has abandoned art and humankind. He is reduced to a mere projection. The second section of Lucky's speech reveals human beings in modern times as those who shrink and dwindle. Even though humans engage in various activities to improve themselves, but all and in vain. Backett uses the mouthpiece of Lucky to attack all academies and human sciences that, according to him, are labors left unfinished, even as they attempt to deal with human concerns. Thus, intellectual efforts of human beings are undigested, a matter of alimentation and deification. In this way, it is a satire on the Enlightenment project that promised progression for humanity instead led to gruesome world wars, causing modern human beings great loss and suffering, interrupting by paradise of scholars like Fartov and Belser, repetition and list of activities. The basic statement is that man is in a process of shrinking. In spite of physical exercise and technical progress, Backett further makes reference to empirical philosophers such as Berkeley and Voltaire to undermine the notion of rationality in human beings. Berkeley's philosophy revised Descartes' famous saying, "I think, therefore I am." To be is to be perceived. Is as a bishop and a philosopher, he advocated that the mental substances of human beings are a reflection of God's infinite mind. The fact that God perceives us makes for our reality. However, this argument is highly problematic in terms of modern development. It is because in modern times God's absence has to be filled by somebody else to acknowledge human existence. Probably that is why in Act 1 of Waiting for Godot, Pozo keeps demanding everyone's attention before he is to perform any act, as one's existence is contingent on others' perception of oneself, even though this perception is fragmentary. Thus, academics, which is considered the foundation of progress, is largely seen as a sterile exercise. With the expulsion from the center of the universe, men become increasingly unimportant and become a speck in the void. The third section describes the eventual chaos. Such contradictions finally lead to the ultimate certainty that Lucky foresees an apocalyptic earth where darkness would prevail and nature runs its course. The image of skull and stones become dominant and reflects a pessimistic wasteland, even as it is undercut by his constant "I resume." The process of deterioration of Lucky's speech suggests his inability to communicate eloquently the various meanings which may give structure to life. The name Lucky is significant in this story and reflects upon his speech as well. Like Estrogen and Vladimir, he does not have to worry about what to do, what the consequence will be, and whether or not he is happy. He has someone commanding him. He is free from any accountability or the anguish of choice. Just as Lucky is enslaved by Pozo, Estragan and Vladimir are equally enslaved to their concept of Godot, which is why they can't live, but they believe themselves to be free. They can't break the bonds of their enslavement, for they refuse to even admit that such bonds exist. The difference between them and Lucky is that the latter can see the rope around his neck, while Vladimir Estragon cannot. The speech is carefully structured around recurrent phrases and words. The particular phrase, for reasons unknown, which recurs more, functions as an effective summation of Lucky's message to the audience. The impossibility of reasoning when causes are intelligible. The course of demonizing of man is also shown in Lucky's life. At first, he was Pozo's teacher and controlled the mental dimensions to the fullest degree, as he was able to dance graciously. Now his dance takes after his speech, he is caught in the maze of cliches. Lucky's deterioration is not accompanied by a natural increase in Pozo's status as master. Pozo is blind and less articulate than he was in Act 1. Emblematic of Pozo's having himself entering in a meaningless world absent of time and space. Lucky falls down at the close of his speech. He seems to have become exhausted by the revelations he has made because the speech has taken everything out of him. Lucky figuratively leaves the question of God up to the reader to determine, and when one tries to take all of the unnecessary diction out of the speech, Lucky seems to understand God more than readers may first acknowledge. Backett's use of language and speech as an exploratory tool is essentially as he manages to construct meaning using fragmented words and phrases, and ensures that speech is sufficient enough to create a narrative in a static play. Many of the dialogues remain futile attempts by his characters to express themselves, yet these repetitive dialogues succeed in representing the characters as a product of external influences. Waiting for Godot reveals that every man is enslaved to some sort of bondage. Lucky is a demained slave tied with a rope by Pozo. Vladimir and Estragon are slaves of time. They have no prospects, or they are never put into a situation where they have to make decisions. The passing of time becomes obvious as the characters wait in eagerness of Godot's arrival. The fact that they wait in vain, however, makes life seem as worthless as that itself. As a postmodern text, Waiting for Godot not only portrays the damaged psyche of the post-war individual, but also depicts the most quintessential attributes of man related to the futile wait, dissipated memory, and a repetitive action. Backett's play remains heavily influenced by existentialism, and he portrays this through the use of his characters who become a representation of whole humanity. So, etu asil aji like Waiting for Godot thoka character Lucky speech oporot short note. Etu question to besiba exam ot ahi thake Lucky speech to explain korbo karone Waiting for Godot. So, yate moi PDF দি দিছো ইয়াৰে গুটেখিনি আপোনালোকে নিলিখিলে হ'ব যিখিনি আপোনালোকৰ ইম্পৰ্টেন্ট টাইপ লাগে সেইখিনি আপোনালোকে লিখিব পাৰে বাট এটো কোৱেশ্চনটো বহুত ইম্পৰ্টেন্ট হয় এক্সামত বেছিভাগ আহি থাকে এতিয়ালৈকে বহুবাৰ এক্সামত আহি গৈছে সো পুনৰবাৰ নতুন এটা ভিডিঅ' হতে লগ পাম আজিলৈ ধন্যবাদ ভিডিঅ'টো ভাল লাগিলে লাইক কমেন্ট এণ্ড সাবস্ক্ৰাইব কৰিব নাপাহৰিব